Hey everybody. The purpose of these videos is just to give you an opportunity to read along with me. You do not have to, you can just read the pages we've assigned, but since in class we usually read together, I wanted to make that possible now, so please read along and listen if that's helpful to you. So we're going to begin today the first part of our group read, the 57 bus. So I'm starting here with the author's note. This is a true story. All the people in this book are real, although in some cases pseudonyms or initials were used to shield identities. Young people are identified by first name only. The details of the story were pieced together from a variety of sources, including interviews, documents, letters, videos, diaries, social media posts, and public records. Quotes from these sources are verbatim, except in a few cases where I removed last names, replacing them with long dashes. Information from first-hand accounts was corroborated with official records whenever possible, unless those records were sealed or are not available to the public. In those cases, I relied on the memory of witnesses and participants. The pronouns and names used for gender non-conforming people were approved by the people in question. 57 bus. Monday, November 4th, 2013. By 4:30 in the afternoon, the first mad rush of after-school passengers has come and gone. What's left are stragglers and stay-laters, flashing their bus passes at the driver as they climb onto the 57 bus and take a seat among the coming-home workers, the shoppers and errand-doers, the other students from high schools and middle schools around the city. The bus is loud, but not as loud as sometimes. A few clusters of kids are shouting and laughing, and an older woman at the front keeps talking to the driver. Dark is coming on. Daylight savings ended yesterday, and now evening rushes into the place where afternoon used to be. Everything is duskier, sleepier, winterier now. Passengers look at their phones or stare through the scratched and grimy windows at the waning light. Sasha sits near the back. For much of the journey, the teenager has been reading a paperback copy of Anna Karenina for a class in Russian literature. Today, like most days, Sasha wears a t-shirt, a black fleece jacket, a gray flat cap, and a gauzy white skirt. A senior at a small private high school, the teenager identifies as agender, neither male nor female. As the bus lumbers through town, Sasha puts down the book and drifts into sleep, skirt draped over the edge of the seat. A few feet away, 3 teenage boys are laughing and joking. One of them, Richard, wears a black hoodie and an orange-billed New York Knicks hat. A 16-year-old junior at Oakland High School, he's got hazel eyes and a slow, sweet grin. He stands with his back to Sasha, gripping a pole for balance. Sasha sleeps as Richard and his companions goof around, play fighting. Sleeps as Richard's cousin Lloyd bounds up and down the aisle, flirting with a girl up front. Sleeps as Richard surreptitiously flicks a lighter and touches it to the hem of that gauzy white skirt. Wait. In a moment, Sasha will wake inside a ball of flame and begin to scream. In a moment, everything will be set in motion. Taken by ambulance to a San Francisco burn unit, Sasha will spend the next 3.5 weeks undergoing multiple surgeries to treat 2nd and 3rd degree burns running from calf to thigh. Arrested at school the following day, Richard will be charged with 2 felonies, each with a hate crime clause that will add time to his sentence if he's convicted. Citing the severity of the crime, the district attorney will charge him as an adult, stripping him of the protections normally given to juveniles. Before the week is out, he will be facing the possibility of life imprisonment. But none of that has happened yet. For now, both teenagers are just taking the bus home from school. Surely it's not too late to stop things from going wrong. There must be some way to wake Sasha, divert Richard, get the driver to stop the bus. There must be something you can do. This is a true story, remember. And I think it's worth thinking about how in this book, again, this true story, this is about a teenage boy who is tried as an adult. So we talked when we read Monster about how he's tried as an adult even though he was a minor. That was a fictional book, but this is a true story where that happened. Next chapter is Oakland, California. Oakland, California is a city of more than 400,000 people, but it can still feel like a small town. Not small geographically, of course. The city sprawls across 78 square miles, stretching from the shallow, salty estuary at the edge of San Francisco Bay to the undulating green and gold hills where bobcats and coyotes roam. What makes it feel small is the web of connections, the way people's stories tangle together. Our lives make footprints, tracks in the snows of time. People know each other's parents or siblings, their aunties and cousins. They go to school together or to church or temple. They play sports on the same team or work in the same building. The tracks cross. The stories overlap. Oakland is considered one of the most diverse cities in the country. It's Asian and Latino, Black and white, African, Arab, Indian, Iranian, Native American, and Pacific Islander. No one group is a majority. It has more lesbian couples per capita than any city in the nation, and one of the largest proportions of gay and lesbian-headed households. It's a city that prides itself on its open-mindedness, its lack of pretension, and its homegrown slang. Oaklanders say hella when they mean very, and hecka when they want to be polite about it. That's cute, we should use that. Hecka. But for all its laid-back inclusiveness, Oakland is also a city of stark contrasts. In 2013, the year Sasha was burned, Oakland ranked 7th among American cities in income inequality, just below New York. Its per capita rate of violent crime made it the second most dangerous city in America, but its citizens still paid some of the highest rents in the country. Gravity works backward here. The money flows uphill. The wealthier neighborhoods in the hills boast good schools, low crime, and views of the bay. Thanks to the Bay Area's high-tech boom, long vacant, historic buildings downtown are filling with startups, boutiques peddling handmade jeans, and night spots serving 7-ingredient cocktails. But little of this good fortune spilled over into the flatlands of East Oakland, where Richard lived. This is where the bulk of the city's murders happen, 2/3 of them in 2013. The schools are shabbier here. The test scores are lower. There's more trash in the streets, more roaming dogs, more liquor stores, fewer grocery stores. The median strips are ragged with weeds. The 57 bus travels through both kinds of neighborhoods, traversing an 11-mile path from one end of the city to the other. It begins at the northwest corner of Oakland and lumbers diagonally across the city, crossing the middle-class foothills, where Sasha lived and where Richard went to school, and then chugging along MacArthur Boulevard for 120 blocks. The route terminates at the city's southeast border, close to Richard's house. Each afternoon, the two teenagers' journeys overlapped for a mere 8 minutes. If it wasn't for the 57 bus, their paths might never have crossed at all. I'm noticing here that the author seems to really want us to be thinking about how different these two teenagers' lives are. So how different Sasha's life is and how different Richard's life is. They live in the same city, but it seems like they have pretty different experiences. So let's pay attention to that as we continue reading. Part 1, Sasha. This is the chapter titled Tumbling, adapted from Sasha's Tumblr page. Favorite vegetable? Bok choy. Favorite animals? Cat and cuttlefish. Favorite type of movie? Dream sequences. 3 best qualities? Navigation. My friends seem to like me. Purple. Of course I like hats. Anyone who doesn't is wrong. I like compliments. I dislike compliments. I like my hair. I give good hugs. I'm good at finding potential puns. If the world was listening, I might just rant about a bunch of things like gender, wealth inequality, why school is important. I like parties. I dislike parties. I don't really keep track of disappointments. Ideal vacation spot? Probably a city with a nice subway. Thinking of things to get me? Try this. A brass airship, a transit map shower curtain, a medieval cloak, a corset with silver buttons, a chiseled chunk of gallium that melts in your palm. I don't know what gallium is. That's a word I don't know if I can infer the meaning of. Although I'm guessing that it says it's chiseled, so I'm guessing it comes from a rock. And it melts. I'm going to look that one up after this, but I'm guessing it's some kind of mineral that comes from a rock. A dress swirled with the image of a nebula, a Victorian house on wheels, tights painted like a mermaid tail. All right, and this is the last chapter we're reading today, pronouns. Even as a toddler, Sasha was interested in language. Not in learning Italian or Swahili or Mandarin, but in language itself, its shape and structure, the Lego blocks of sounds that snap together to make words and sentences. Most toddlers are interested in the fact that the animal with two pointy ears and a long tail is called a cat. Sasha was interested in the fact that adding an S at the end of the word cat made it plural. Look, Sasha would say, 2 cats. Before turning 3, Sasha was matching sounds with letters, sometimes in unusual ways. B is for baby, Sasha would exclaim. Y is for wire. 10 is for tent. At 4, Sasha was reading independently, but had also begun contemplating the shapes of letters. K is 1 rectangle and 2 parallelograms, Sasha announced at the breakfast one day. M is 2 parallelograms and 2 rectangles. 2 years later, Sasha began creating a new language. It was called Astrolinguish, and it was the language of Sasha's home planet, Astrolingua. Written Astrolinguish was awash in diacritical marks. Whoa, that's a hard word for me. I'm going to say it again. Written Astrolinguish was awash in diacritical marks, with lots of umlauts, accents, and tildes. The spoken language luxuriated in rolled R's and L's. There's probably some vocabulary you don't know in that sentence. I didn't know the word, or I still don't know the word diacritical, but look those up if you aren't sure of them. Umlauts, accents, tildes, you actually know what some of those are if you speak Spanish especially. You've probably seen them before even if you don't speak Spanish, and it's just helpful to know what they're called in English. As a senior in high school, Sasha was still inventing languages, hanging out online with other conlangers, people who constructed languages of their own. By now, Sasha was working up a new language. This one never had a name, but it was spoken by the members of an imaginary agricultural society, something like that of ancient Mesopotamia. All languages embody the obsessions of the people who speak it. And so, Sasha's language was meant to reflect the interests of a people whose world was dominated by growing seasons, grains, and harvests. Instead of pronouns that distinguished between male and female, Sasha's language had pronouns that distinguished between animate and inanimate objects. Do you guys know what animate and inanimate means? This is like Dora the Explorer. I'm going to wait. What does animate mean? That's right. Animate means something that can move. What does inanimate mean? Yes, it means something that cannot move. Sasha's language had pronouns that distinguished between animate and inanimate objects. The word for sun was jejes, which is also the word for day. The difference was that sun was considered animate, a being, and day was considered inanimate, a thing. Our language, English, works differently. We care a lot about gender, and English reflects that in its pronouns, she or he, her or him, his or hers. Our language, English, works differently. We care a lot about gender, and English reflects that in its pronouns. She or he, her or him, his or hers. You might think this is just how languages work in the real world, but there are many languages on Earth that are basically gender neutral, using the same word for he, she, and it, or not using pronouns at all. You've probably heard of some of them. They include Armenian, Comanche, Finnish, Hungarian, Hindi, Indonesian, Quechua, Thai, Tagalog, Turkish, Vietnamese, and Yoruba. I'm not totally sure I pronounced that one correctly. Comanche. I'm going to look that up. You should too. Another language, by the way, that doesn't really use gendered pronouns is Japanese. English, on the other hand, poses a challenge for people like Sasha who don't see themselves fitting into neat either-or categories like male or female. Sasha, like many gender nonconforming people, asks people to use the pronoun they. It might feel awkward at first, but you'll get used to it. That's where we're stopping today. Probably some of you have already heard of people using the pronoun they. Lots of people use that. We'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward in reading this book. I know there's some advanced vocabulary in this book also. As you've seen, there's some words that I'm not totally sure how to pronounce and not always 100% sure what they mean. That is one good reason to listen to me read while you read, so you can hear me work through those words. And also remember to practice our inferring skills. So try to infer what those words mean if there's words that you don't know the meaning of. And then after you practice inferring, then you can look it up and see how close you got. All right, see you next time.